Good morning. You're listening to Caregiver Crossing, a podcast brought to you by Joy's House, presented in partnership with Cardon and Associates. We're just happy that you're here. Caregiver Crossing is a podcast created just for you, the caregiver. I'm Tina McIntosh.
I'm Terry Stacy.
According to a report released by Generation United this month, 25% of grandparent-headed households, think about that, grandparent-headed households, experienced food insecurity between 2019 and 2020, which is more than twice the national rate. Nationally, there are more than 2.4 million grandparents or households who are responsible for a grandchild or grandchildren who live with them, which puts them at a 60% higher chance of food insecurity than households with no children. As the United States faces food shortages around the country, Generation United's latest report shows the need for expanded support for grandparent-headed households facing this food insecurity. Released on November 1st, Together at the Table, Supporting the Nutrition, Health, and Well-Being of Grandfamilies, highlights key findings crucial to supporting the more than 2.5 million children in the U.S. being raised by caregivers other than a parent.
Well, we've got some help for you today. Here to discuss the new report and its findings, it's Donna Butts, Executive Director of Generations United. And Donna, we are so glad to have you with us. Thanks for joining us today. First of all, food insecurity, those are it's a new word for some. Tell us what food insecurity, that definition.
Well, food insecurity means people are hungry, that they're skipping meals, that they don't have enough food in the refrigerator, that they can't afford going to go to the grocery store. And what we say is that hunger hurts. It really hurts no matter what age you are. And with grandparents raising grandchildren, they often forego their own meals so that they can feed the children.
That's hard to take in. And I wonder, Donna, you've been doing this for a minute, 25 years, I understand. And who do you see come across? Because I think sometimes we hear the words and we put them together and we create our own story. So I can hear food insecurity and you're talking about people who can't go to the grocery, and instantly there's an image in my mind. And I have a feeling I'm wrong. I have a feeling that this affects all people in all kinds of ways.
Tina, you're so right. Grandparents raising grandchildren, they cut across all socioeconomic, racial, cultural groups. It hits everyone. I don't know anyone who, if you bring up the topic, doesn't know somebody, either they themselves, a relative, a neighbor, that has stepped in to take care of children when their parents are unable to raise them. I knew a foundation CEO who lived on Cape Cod raising his 2 grandchildren, and we know people who struggle every day with paying their rent, with having enough resources to support themselves in retirement. And then they take in 1 or more new mouths to feed, and they just have to stretch it further and further. They really deserve our support and respect.
Are there federal assistance programs out there for families, and perhaps they just don't know it?
You know, you're really right, Terry. That's one of the frustrating things. And one of the things that we found is that even though low-income grandparents raising grandchildren could access the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, oftentimes known as SNAP, what used to be food stamps, less than half of them access it. Now, whether it's because they don't know it exists or there's a stigma attached to it, we know that the grandparents and other relatives need to have better access, which is why we also advocate for kinship navigator programs that are a one-stop shop in every state that can help refer grandparents to the resources and supports they deserve and that are accessible to them.
Any findings, Donna, on the kids? So these children that are being raised in grandparent families, how do they compare to that of kids raised in the no kinship foster care?
Children in the care of relatives fare far better than children who are in foster care with a non-relative. Kids who are being raised by a relative, when you think about it, kids in foster care oftentimes are bounced from home to home to home. The grandparents are more likely to keep them so that they have roots. They have a home that they stay in. They're connected to their same school. They're connected to brothers and sisters. They don't break brothers and sisters apart. But really what's really important is that they stay connected to their roots, their family history, their culture, so they have that solid grounding, and they're much more likely to report feeling loved.
So I'm just, you're talking about these families, and sometimes when we have these conversations, Donna, I can tend to get lost in the percentages. in the findings of things. But when I really think about it, you're talking about a grandparent or grandparents who have lived decades. They've raised their children. They have entered into a new part of their life, no matter what that looks like. And now they're taking in their grandchildren to raise them, maybe without much notice. And they thought life was going to look different. I mean, I can only imagine all the emotions and the layers of, therapy and things that could be in there for this family, on top of the love and, the security and those things. But then you throw in the fact that they had not accounted for taking care of these grandchildren, and now they can't get food. And I can only imagine how that tips everything else, upside down.
It really does tip everything upside down. I always think about the grandmother I met in Kansas City once, who had saved for retirement, had retired, her children were grown. So she bought herself a condo in Kansas City. She put in white wall-to-wall carpet, put out all these crystal figurines. And then in the middle of the night, the knock came on the door and there were 2 grandchildren there. And it was either take them or we'll put them in foster care. So the crystal figurines went back in boxes and closets. The white carpet didn't stay white very long. And she raised those children. And she was able to do it because what many grandparents will say is, I can pull another chair up to the table. I just can't put enough food on that plate that's in front of that chair. And so to face that and to feel like you can't provide for the grandchildren is just devastating. And they really do deserve the support, the access to programs, the access to healthy food so that they can raise children that thrive.
I've told a story. We heard a story a couple of weeks ago about a woman here in Indianapolis that was killed in a car crash and left behind 4 babies or 4 children, boys, and a little girl that's just turned 1 year old, and a 1-year-old. And so this grandmother now has a whole lot of pride, and it's been very hard for her to say, I need help. But she does. I mean, she's got 3 boys that are getting ready to be teenagers, and then this brand new baby. And I know that you've probably heard, and if you can share maybe some of the a testimonial that from one of those grandparents that participated in the study.
There were a number of stories. I think the one that was devastating to me was Eugene Vickerson out of Atlanta, Georgia. And what he talked about was sitting on his front porch, and all of a sudden a car stepped up or pulled up, and somebody got out, a social worker got out with a car baby carrier, and basically brought the baby carrier over to Eugene, handed it to him and said, this is your granddaughter. If you don't take her, she's going into foster care. And he said, what's that in your other hand? And it was a bag of potato chips and a soda. And he said, what's that? And she said, that's the food. And so he was left with a bag of chips, a soda, and a baby in a bassinet. And that's it.
That makes me want to run out and grab all the grandparents and the grandbabies and do something, right? And so are you not for profit? I guess that's a good question as well. Are you a not for profit organization?
Yeah, Generations United is a non-for-profit organization that advocates on behalf of intergenerational programs and grandfamilies.
So you count on the support of the public. Donations make a difference for you?
They do make a difference for us, and I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you bringing that up. I'd also like to encourage people to think locally too, because chances are your community has a support group for grandparents. It may be at a church, a temple, a faith-based organization. It could be at your local Y. But look for a local support group and help that support group. Christmas is coming up. The holidays are coming up. The families could use all the support that you can give. So think locally. And if you do think globally, we're here too. And it really helps us to keep our work underway.
Who brings Caregiver Crossing to life. We're a local Indianapolis-based not-for-profit adult day service and have caregiver support and education. And if there's not a local support group, we'll find a way to house one for the good work that you're doing at Joy's house. So I saw Candace Googling already.
I think that's fabulous. And one of the sources to look at is grandfamilies.org. There's a state fact sheet. So there's one for Indiana there, and that will have supports. It'll have what the laws are. It'll also let people know if there's a support group near them. But I really appreciate that commitment, because it takes all of us to make sure that we're supporting the families. We're helping them as they take on this amazing and sometimes very, very daunting task.
Grandfamilies.org. It is so nice to meet you. And again, thank you for the work you're doing. Donna Butts, the Executive Director of Generation United. Thank you so much for being here today. And Tina, before we close the show, I know that listeners like to get a hold of you and tell them what to do next.
Oh, it's easy. Just email me at tina@joyshouse.org. Joy's House has an S that always trips people up just a little bit there. And we'd love to hear from you. And then before we go, we do want to thank our sponsors and supporters. Thank you for everything that you do. Caregiver Crossing is supported by Cardon and Associates. They have 20 communities owned, operated, and managed in the Midwest and more than 40 years of senior living experience. Cardon and Associates provides residents with the best senior living option and personalized service, and we're grateful for their support of this show. So thank you to all of you. Until next time, on behalf of Terry, Stacy, and myself, take good care of each other.